What do you think of when you look at the Taoiseach now, Brian Cowan, and he's under an awful lot of stress? Do you feel kind of sorry for the way the economy has turned out for his tenure as Taoiseach, or what are your feelings on that situation?
John, there's always tough periods. Of course it's tough for them. There's no doubt about that. I remember back during the currency crisis, it was tough. I mean, we had. I remember having to go on Morning Ireland one morning and actually say that the interest rates were going up 3% that day. There was times that the overnight money was going up 50 and 60% during the currency crisis. During the Northern Ireland troubles, there was the ups and downs, the Oma bombings. There's always tough period, and I think what we have to expect of our leaders is what my colleagues are doing, is just that in good times and in bad, you knuckle down and you do your best. It's always a stressful job. It's always a pressurising job. And in this period of a tough recession, we just have to try and knuckle through it and work ourselves out of it as quickly as possible. And that's what we're doing. I mean, some of the things that Brian Cowan, Brian Lennon are doing are not things they would like to be doing. I mean, they're tough decisions, but unfortunately, the tough decisions are necessary ones for all of us to get us through this as quickly as possible and get us out the other side of it.
There definitely seems to be, when I speak with my friends and people, I suppose, of my generation around the country, there seems to be a lot of anger out there at the moment. I mean, a lot of people are having to emigrate to find employment. A lot of people are finding themselves unemployed, with maybe the prospect of taxes rising and all that in the new year. Some people also would perhaps maybe be a little bit angry at yourself for what they feel is the result of your turn as Taoiseach, and as we said, we find ourselves in this kind of economic crisis. Do you think that anger is justified?
Well, I think it always is. But if we just answer your first question, which is a fair question to ask, when I left in May of last year, I started at 1 million work and I ended at 2. I started with 11% unemployment. I ended at under 4. I started with a debt-GDP ratio back when I was Minister for Labour. It was 140%. I ended it at 20. I had dealt with the major issues. The big drawback in the country was the peace process in Northern Ireland. So unfortunately, Lehman's and the credit crunch came after I left. I mean, if I was there, I would have tried to handle it best I could, and I'm sure I would have done no better, no worse than anyone else. But I can't accept any anger for doubling employment, for getting average growth at 7%, for writing down the debt. People who think I might have had a genie that would have told me, listen, there's a whole lot of other things to do. And somebody told me this Christmas there's 18 books coming out around the world on the credit squeeze. But unfortunately, 3 years ago, when we could have done with some of that advice, there was none out that Christmas. But that's how it is, John.
There has been a lot of people as well who would say that they feel that maybe they elected you in as a third term as Taoiseach, and then it seemed when things started to get tough that Mr. Ahern was no more. What would you say to those people?
Well, I'd say to them I would have loved to stay on, but I mean I couldn't move the national obsession away from just talking about tribunal matters, and every one of my colleagues went out. That they were jumped on. There was nothing would have given me more pleasure to work through this period, because I've seen lots of tough and hard times. I mean, the 6 programs of social partnership, I negotiated 5 of them, implemented the 6 through the northern stuff, through the European talks. So while it's tough at the moment, I mean, I would have been quite happy to be there. But insofar as I can help my colleagues and give them advice when they need it, I certainly do that. And in fairness to them, they're doing their best to deal with the positions that are there, but it's not a uniquely Irish one. And in terms of unemployment, I feel hardest for the people of unemployment, because it's not like past times. I was in the States recently. There's no jobs over there. I mean, there's no point in people emigrating there. There's little or no work except for very specialist industries. And in Chicago, they're starting the 1st of January. Everyone has to take 2 weeks off unpaid leave. A lot of the traditional Irish places are where a lot of people in the West would have traditionally went. I mean, there's just nothing around, and it's really tough. And Australia is beginning to come out of it for certain issues, but most of Europe is so there's not those opportunities. But So that's why I think we have to get ourselves out of it as quickly as we can and work as hard to get out of it as quickly as we can. But always remember, we've still nearly 2 million people working. We have a high unemployment rate now, and all efforts have to be on to get that down as quickly as we can get through this.
Have you found at all since resigning as Taoiseach that your life has maybe kind of gone back to a bit of semblance of normality?
Well, a bit. I still have a Dublin Central constituency. It was always a busy constituency and always a demanding one, and so I'm back doing a lot of the work there now. And I'm doing a fair bit for the World Economic Forum. I just do that voluntary. It's dealing with conflict resolutions in different parts of the world, and I spend a lot of my time at Cooperation Ireland, which is dealing with the ongoing problems of marginalisation and sectarianism in the north, and we have the difficulties in that. And then I've been involved in a few charities. We were able to raise, I think, over nearly $250,000 for suicide and the 3 T's on some of those ads we've been doing on TV. So, at least it's kept life rewarding and busy.
Yeah.
You never get bored anyway, that's sure.
I suppose finally, just returning to your autobiography, which, as we mentioned, is out at the moment. If it was ever going to be turned into a film, would you have maybe somebody you have in mind to play Mr. Bertie Ahern?
I don't think they'll ever do that. It'd be a good reference book for people, and I hope people enjoy it. I mean, it's a very straightforward read of 30 years in politics, and I suppose me 58 years on this life. So I hope people enjoy it, John.
Okay, well, Mr. Ahern, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and thanks very much for taking our call here on Claremorris Community Radio. Thank you.